Good morning, everyone. It's a great privilege to be the first presenter today at this conference. And like Nick, I actually had a few words about down markets and trying to make everyone feel good. But obviously last night changed that. But I did want to, everyone would know Warren Buffett, and one of my favourite quotes of his is a simple rule that dictates my buying. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. And so, maybe that's playing out a little bit overnight, but it's certainly something to remember. So, when I was putting this together, you think that Reed Corporate, you think Nick would have a big, large digital footprint. It's actually very hard to find a photo of Nick online, which is quite amazing. It's actually pretty easy to find a photo of Paul Armstrong online because he's always reading his favourite newspaper, the West Australian. And for those who don't know that he used to be the editor of the West Australian. I'm sure pretty much everyone knows that. So I was trying to find something where they're actually together, and that's all I could come up with, was to compare the pair. And given what superannuation funds are doing at the moment with data hacks and things like that, I thought that was appropriate. Now, to get on to the real serious stuff. So I want to take you on a little bit of a journey and have a think what you were doing New Year's Eve 2024. New Year's Eve 2024, we are actually completing a merger. So I would suggest to any executive out there, do not complete a merger on New Year's Eve. There is better things to do with your time. But I want to take you a little bit of a journey about what did we do, why did we do it, what the strategy is, but also what you can expect from us. And to pronounce the name correctly of the copper project or the region, it's called Chibougamau. Okay, so we call it the boogie to keep it nice and short. So if I refer to the boogie, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to anything else. So this may be quite a new story to a lot of you. But what we did is we completed a merger with a company called Doré Copper. Now, why did we do that merger? Well, simply the merger, and to quote sort of Donald Trump, the deal was too good. And maybe it was a deal we were always going to do. We were just pretending that we were going to do something else, like Donald Trump has talked about overnight. But certainly the deal was too good. Why did we do this deal? So if you have a think, what we were able to acquire, try and find a high-grade copper project in the world. And when I say high-grade, I mean proper high-grade. This is just under 11 million tonnes, 3.5% copper equivalent. And when I say copper equivalent, I'm only talking copper and gold. I'm not dressing up another commodity as a copper equivalent. This is only copper and gold. It's in a mining-friendly jurisdiction. It's right next to infrastructure, hydropower. It's got a mill. It's got a workforce. So for those who don't know Chibougamau, think of Kalgoorlie, but a very modern Kalgoorlie. And so for us, it was an obvious combination. We were already in Quebec exploring for lithium, but as we know, lithium has been a pretty tough market to be involved in. And shareholders do not pay executives of mining companies to sit back and hope for a better day. And so, we did pivot to copper. And the same people, and you'll hear the story later this morning, behind Firefly, which has been a huge success, and also behind Andy and Silver, were involved in completing the due diligence for this transaction. So you can see there the infrastructure of Chibougamau. There's roads, there's rail, as I said, there's power. So for us, what do we actually want to do? What is our strategy? What do we want to do with this project? And we're sitting here this morning as a 70 million market cap. Let's call it probably around 60 million EV with a high grade resource. Where our expertise comes in is that we put money into the drill bit. And so we believe, and when I take you through the area and you'll understand, we think there's a huge opportunity to grow the resources that are existing there. We'll also be looking to upgrade the resources, so take more inferred into indicated, and we will be looking for discovery. And I will show you we've already had some early success. In the background, we're going to finalise some studies, and what you'll see is there's a little bit of a hub and spoke model to the infrastructure that we're going to apply. And as a non-executive director of Ramelius, we have applied that hub and spoke model very successfully at Mount Magnet, and so there's some similarities to that. Now, if you like copper, what I'm highlighting up here is you see where that 18 kilometres of strike is at the top. Here's some of the intersections that are sitting outside of the resource. So these have yet to be followed up. This is in our portfolio. When you can, 26% copper equivalent over nearly 6 metres. You've got numbers in the teens there. I won't go through every one, but you can understand, if you're a geologist, why you would get excited about having those type of copper intersections that are sitting there outside of resource that haven't been mined. Now, one of the other things that attracted us to this project is that there was a PEA. Now, a PEA, in Australian speak, it's somewhere between a scoping study, but probably just short of a pre-feasibility study. That was completed on this project. Now, the ASX, whilst it's a public document, the ASX won't allow me to put slides in of the numbers of that PFS. But fortunately, there's a famous journalist in the room who wrote an article about it, so I can quote him. So Barry Fitzgerald wrote an article about the study that was put out for this project. So if you have a look at this project, 180 million capex up front. When it was completed, it was using a copper price way lower than today. It was using a gold price of 1,800 US an ounce, and we're over 3,000 an ounce today. It was using treatment and refining charges, which are 10 times lower today than when the study was out. Didn't include any silver. It's using recoveries which are much lower than the recoveries that we've got today. It's using an exchange rate equivalent to when the Aussie dollar was probably around 75 cents US. So let's add then, so that's all the upside. So let's add a bit more capex. Let's say add another 15% capex up front, add another 10% of operating costs to the study. For 180 million up front, Canadian, it produces 1.3 billion of free cash. So for us, that actually underpins the valuation. I can arm wave and say we're going to make discoveries and we're going to find additional copper, but what you've got there is still a 24,000 tonne per annum operation for 10 years, delivering over 100 million Canadian free cash per year for a very low capex number. So you can see why we're pretty excited by it. So what I'm going to show you, I'll just go back. So have a look at that northern part of the camp. So all the red is our tenements. Have a look at that 18 kilometres of strike, which I've now zoomed in on. So the history of this area, there has been over 1 million tonnes of copper produced and 3.5 million ounces of gold. And if you have a look at the scale there, every kilometre almost, there's been a mine. Now these are all separately owned, so they never actually explored, they never shared data. We now control this belt. So again, I see the similarities to Mount Magnet, where everyone thought, 3 million ounces, it's gone. Well, it's up around 6 million ounces. You look for these jurisdictions as a geologist. And I've highlighted there a couple of historical holes, just to give you an idea of how well endowed this area was. 47 metres at 7% copper. You don't see those today. So for us to get the opportunity with infrastructure installed is pretty amazing. And if you have a look on what is the left-hand side, you can see Colleen. That's actually, we've made a new discovery there. We've actually hit some copper in some of our first holes. And just to the right of that, you can see a number of pink drill holes. So everything pink is over 3%, completely outside of existing resources. We're drilling there right now. In fact, we've just completed the drill program with 2 drill rigs, and we're waiting on assays. But in that area, 5.9 metres at 26% copper, very shallow. Again, completely outside of resource. So I'm pretty confident we're going to add to the resource. That is what some of our expertise is. You will see that with Firefly, and you'll see that with Andean later today. But you can understand why I get pretty tetchy and excited about what we're doing here. So also with the infrastructure, there's an airport. This is a mining town. It has probably the most commercial First Nations group that you'll come across. Now I have to keep going because I've been told by Nick if I'm over time I will be in trouble as the first presenter. So I'm going to rush through a couple more slides. Corner Bay is 80% of our existing resource, and that was at the southern part of that image that I showed you of the map. In our first drill hole, and that's the core that you can see there, we hit 7.3 metres at 4.6% copper. And guess what? It was 250 metres away from the resource. So we've already proven that there is more copper to find, and this is outside of an existing resource that's sitting there. A lot of these old-timer mines didn't use downhole EM. That is one of the most basic geophysical tools to be able to highlight potential ore bodies underground. And you can see we've got some fairly large plates there that the geophysicists have identified for us to drill. Infrastructure. So you can see there the mill under the shed. So everything in Canada is under a shed. It's a 900,000 tonne per annum mill. Part of the 180 million capital that we'll spend is allocated to upgrading that mill. At 900,000 tonnes, under the PEA, we would only use half of that. Within Canada, there is so much opportunity because there is a lack of capital. It is not like Australia where there is access to capital. Since we completed the merger with the TSXV companies, we've been contacted by 60 TSXV companies. How can we come to Australia? Because remember, in Canada, they went from mining a while ago to marijuana, and now they're in AI, and there's very little capital. And so I think you'll find that there are some Canadian companies looking to come to Australia, but be careful because there's a lot of lifestyle companies there, and you've got to be very careful with that. I've talked about we've improved recoveries. Great First Nations group. They've got $250 million under management. They are exceptionally commercial. They want to see mining. In terms of the area, we're well located if we go down that hub and spoke model, and there are some opportunities to build up through mergers or acquisitions of other companies. And I've just highlighted there's large gold deposits, IM Gold, Northern Superior. There's lots of other copper deposits. We have the only milling infrastructure for 250 kilometres for base metals. So that puts us in a great position. So what to expect from us? You'll expect to see news flow, drilling, which will include drilling results, resource upgrades, and other news as we progress the study. And I'm about to run out of time, but you always want to make sure who do you get involved with. And we got involved with a bunch of Canadians who know how to build projects. So the Managing Director, CEO, built Cobre Panama, the world's largest copper mine for Inmet. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you very much.